Hello, listeners. Hi, my name is Madhavi, and I'm so happy to have you on Upptalk. You have come to the right place if you want to learn about IT and do really cool things with your hands. We are not just another IT company when I say Upptalk. Think of us as your learning partner dedicated to helping you reach your full potential. We have top notch hands on courses to help you build your business, whether you are new to technology or want to move up in your current job. Let's look around this as our first step towards learning.
Now, if you see here files are imported, but you see all files are imported. Quick links are not coming up because quick links evaluate at the time of when you log in. You have to always log up and log in to see the changes. Now you will see these quick links. Last time we covered the split links. Now when you click here, Manage User Access, what exactly happened? SailPoint basically call a workflow. It's kind of a file. Now, how can you check that file? First, how can you check which file is called that you can see a Lifestyle Manager? For example, Manage User Access and Manage Account. Go to Lifestyle Manager Business Process. Here you will see those file name. For example, the first Access Manager account, else provisioning is configured. If you reset the password, what happens? For that manage password L, now this is the list. Else in provisioning, this is a workflow name. And on the UI, this is also called a business process. Now, how can you check this business process? Else in provisioning, you can go here business process. Here you will see all those lists that we have in our local setup. Go next. Here you will see else in provisioning. This is the name. This is the type. Here you have different variables. This is the process designer. This is basically a graphical representation of how this workflow will execute. Workflow is basically what? It is a combination of multiple steps. This is a flow. You see here like it's basically a decision box. Based on that, it will go. Now same workflow, you can check from debug. Type workflow. Else in provisioning. Basically, whenever we click here, create identity or let's say manage access, manage account, request process in the backend. Basically in the backend, this is the file which is called. Now what we can do with this file? SailPoint instead of writing the Java. Because instead of writing a Java SailPoint provides workflow file. Because you cannot modify the Java. You can modify it, but you need to compile it. You need to deploy it. It will take much effort. And you should have a good knowledge on Java, then you can make those changes. They are providing this approach, workflow approach, which is basically configurable. That means you can directly configure value schemes. For example, go back to your business process, click on the process variable. For example, approval. Do you want to create approval or disable approval? You can simply select here. If you select this, all approval will be disabled. The SailPoint will not generate any kind of approval whenever you are making requests to entitlement or account. Let's say you want approval. You can undermine this. And here, who will be the approver? For example, in the application, we have application owner here. For example, financial application, we have owner. Let's example, if I put here Alan Burton, what will happen? Since I've selected here owner, and whenever you're requesting anything on this application, SailPoint will automatically create approval for Alan Burton because we have configured owner here. What are the options that you can configure? If you click here on this drop-down, you will see the option that you can configure. For example, you can configure manage, you can configure owner, specific identities, work group security officer. What is the security officer? Basically, security officer is kind of a person who knows the system, the security, and we can select that person here. The security officer can take this here on the approval. Now, for example, you select here manager. What will happen? Let's say I'm requesting something here for Aaron Nicholas from this manage account option. From manager access, let's say I'm selecting something for the Aaron Nicholas. What will happen? The approval will directly go to the Aaron Nicholas manager because here I have selected manager. Now you can also select multiple in a sequence. For example, here the two are configured owner, then the manager. What will happen? First say upon create approval for the owner, once owner approves that approval item, then it will generate a new approval again for the manager. This way, basically, you can configure the approval. Same way, you can configure more items here. For example, the notification. Who should be notified? If you're requesting something here, user requester, you will also see here a option manager. Let's say we want to notify all 3-person user, the requester, and the manager. Let's say Aaron Nicholas, manager is James Smith, and I'm the requester. In this case, it will send first. It will send email to user, then requester, that is me, then Aaron Nicholas, manager, that is James Smith. This is the advantage of workflow. Now, whatever you see here. Let's have example. Owner leaves the organization. In that case, SailPoint will call the fallback approval. Whatever you see here, notification, this wizard thing. Same, you will see here in the back end. Here, if you see those things same. For example, let's talk about the approval. Here, approval scheme. We call it scheme variable basically. This is the description about this. Currently, approval scheme is configured owner. These are the options that you can choose. You can choose owner, you can choose manager, security officer identity. Let's say you selected owner and owner is not present on or owner leaves the organization. In that case, SailPoint will go to fallback approval. You can search for fallback approval. If you see, fallback approval is configured as a spare name. Now, if you see the description, a string that specifies the name of the identity that will be assigned. Any approval where the owner of the approval cannot be resolved. Instead of a spread, we can change in the form that we saw. We can basically want that, for example, the owner leaves our nation. You will by default, this is a value, but you can select any work group or any specific person here as a fallback approval. Person will notify, this is the approval items. Notifications will be sent when the request and notifications will be in the form of emails. Yes, notification always in the form of email. If you see here, I'm the first one is approval. Now approval email template. If you see, this is the approval email template. You can select different email tablet as per you want how this template looks like. Go to debug. Email template with the name here search. This is the email template. If you see, you will see some code here. This is a template if-else condition that will execute on the runtime, and based on the data it will generate this value. I'll show you a few email here. I'll come to the email part later. First, this is how we can configure this workflow. This is the advantage of putting the code into workflow, because if the Java is there, the problem is you have to change the Java. You have to compile it, you have to deploy it, you have to, and for the deployment, you have to shut down the server. You have to do the deployment, then you have to restart the server. But here, in case of XML, whatever value you can select here, you can select from here also, or you can select from here also. Both options will work, basically. Based on that, it will behave accordingly. And let's say tomorrow, you also want to define two different process for the manager access and the manage account. Now, basically, if you see here, LifeCycle Manager. In the business process, for this to same process is called. Let's say you want to different approval here and different approval here. How can you do that? For that, what you can do is go back to your debug page. Click on this, make a copy of this, put here in your notepad, go on the top, remove this, ID create it. Let me say this first and put an email. Let's have a gamble. Manage user access. I'll send provisioning. What I'll do, I'll save this by this name. Copy save will be XML. I will save this here. Now remove this ID and all. Go to global setting, import this file, the one that we created. Basically, it's kind of a replica with a different name. You will see it workflow, and this is a name. Now what you can do, go back to your Lifecycle Manager, go to Business Process, select it here. And whatever change you want, you can directly change here. Go to Business Process, refresh this. Go on. Manage user access. I'll send provisioning. Whatever change we will do here, that will only impact this particular functionality, not manage account. This way, basically we create a copy and you can select here this drop down as per your need. Now coming to here. I hear you're seeing provisioning is like setting up the approvals and approval workflow. I think provisioning is basically whole process. Whenever you create request, here the request is called, and in the back end is called a basic. Whenever you're creating a request, that means you are trying to add something, remove something. The request is treated as a provisioning basically. Basically, if you take example of bank, you go and deposit something and you withdraw something. But in terms in general, we call it transaction. You're doing some transition in the bank. Here, instead of transition, we use some provisioning. You're adding something or you're removing something. For the every kind of provisioning request, this is the whole process is triggered. Not all this, only not handle approval. Everything is handled by this process, only workflow. What are the other things? One. Here you can control the workflow. Approval in the workflow. Email template for fallback approval. You can select and other ideas, say in Google. Here you can select. Now notification. Different notification. Once the request is completed, this is for the approval notification. This for the ones that your request is completed. You can select the user notify manager. And this is a template will be called. If you want to change the look and feel, you can simply edit here this template from the debug page. Now, if you go down here the policy, check the debug page and this UI for the same. Is there a difference? Is there you can do more with the debug page, or you can do more of the debug page. You can do anything. But here you will have limited control. It is a good practice to do it from the debug page, and most senior people will do the debug page. I guess absolutely correct. And you basically you copy paste the original one and then you play with the second one, correct? We don't make change in the original one because that will be override at the time of upgrade. Now, in your experience, do you see this being used as a vanilla, which is given by the company, or people do a lot of customizations in the LCM? For this quick link, for example, these quick links mostly they use vanilla. Mostly they are very good, very good. And tell us wherever they use vanilla and where they do a lot of things. At least we'll practice those that needs more focus. Thank you. Sometime. Basically, what they do is client. When client, team is always, they need more and more. Sometimes they have a knowledge and they feel that we are paying for the customer. Sorry, we are paying for the vendor. Sometimes they come with those requests which they are following manually, but they want to process through the IAM. Like, for example, we have a help desk and those kind of portals through which you can request for the hardware. Let's say you need a cell phone for office purpose. Those kind of thing. Let's say you need a new laptop. Generally, we have a different portal here in our nation to request those hard ways. Like you need a laptop, you need a cell phone, you need a Wi-Fi device, those kind of thing. But sometimes client also ask you, can you build a functionality here in SailPoint through which user can come and request for mobile phone laptop, and that will go for the approval. A, B, C, this person. And then once that request is approved, what we'll do, we'll create a manual ticket. Basically not the manual ticket, basically an automated ticket on the service now and now. Someone directly assigned cell phone or requested item, whether it's a cell phone or a new laptop, will directly send to the requestee. This is kind of custom requirement where we cannot use this one. The 111, some provisioning, we have to modify that. For example, here you click on this quick link. It simply launch a form here. Now this form field, but let's say you want a form which will let you with cell phone. You want to select which region you belong to. Who's your manager? What is the business justification for that? Then you submit it and will go for the approval. In that case, we have to modify this. But talking about the lights, a life vehicle model that every client use. In that case, we hardly customize this instead of that mostly time. We use this wizard, or you can say from the backend, that is a debug. We modify this value. For example, you want to change the approval and those settings. But I was showing you here what? What you're saying is the lifecycle management is typically vanilla functionality companies use, but there may be changes in the self-service modules or some service, whatever you call within them. But I don't understand why, if you have a service now, which most companies have now, you want to do it from a SailPoint, which is the IAM tool for requesting a hardware or a laptop. But different clients can be different. main reason to use SailPoint instead of going with that ServiceNow approach. They want to. They want to give a one-stop solution to all the employee, like go to SailPoint. And from here you can request whatever you want instead of going to different portals. And it will be easy to manage the request. Now we are not managing, for example, you are. If I take example of that mobile phone and the hardware, in case we are not managing the identity. Basically, we are managing the request and the approval in sale. That's a different. Which SharePoint can do more effectively and which service now can do more effectively than the core functionality of IAM. But I understand. But also, just for you in future, how we can interface with you. Know the requests coming in from SharePoint or ServiceNow, how they can be integrated into that portion. I don't know. You have such a part that you will cover in future that will not be covered in this training because training is with respect to your product. But what we do in that, I tell you, basically it's called integration. Where you go, you hear from this application connector we onboarded as an application. For example, that is basically application onboarding. The thing is called integration, in which basically our SailPoint system and the other system basically sharing more than what we doing in provisioning and the aggregation. Basically, that is called integration. Basically, we are integrating SailPoint with the ServiceNow. For that, you will see a separate module from the SailPoint community that you can set up. You have to set up some files of some setting. And same thing, you have to some step you need to follow on the ServiceNow. Then whatever data you will fetch from the ServiceNow, that can be captured by SailPoint, and the same way Sail can also send data to ServiceNow. But we need to do many changes, like there's many confusion changes. We need to import new files here. And then we need to design the workflow like which type of request we are creating in the service. Now again, there are multiple type of requests. Then the system is also, a little different. What exactly you want to bring into SailPoint? For that, you have to follow the integration. I think now the app's in the IQ, the app init config. You see mostly these are all REST API. I mean, 100%. You worked with the postman and all that to test them and all that. When we work for the client, you have to do that. But typically, the request process is done by a different system, and then, and also you need to tell them back that this task is completed to that system too. You have to do like whatever that comes from the requesting system and then do it and then tell them back that it is done. That's an important task. Got I see SAP GRC application rules. I see some. Basically, this is a one file for the SAP GRC. For example, when I read this SAP GRC integration like SAP Direct application, you can simply onboard it. You go to add new application, you can simply select SAP Direct. But in order to use SP GRC is a separate system. I know that is governance, risk and compliance. For that, you have to import this file. If you open this, you will see here one rule that starts there and ends here. Oh, they have only one rule now. Previously, they are also providing workflow. Maybe in the new release they have changed that. I worked in that 7.3, I guess. Basically, this kind of conversation you can get here and you can import and use it. These are the additional basically part only when you require generally that time we import this file into SailPoint. And you are asking something. I was thinking this video. What will we go to a community site? I don't know if you can access without logging here. Resource product connected die trick. And there is one more tab. Where is that? Resource. Where is that? That is again is working service for commercial food. I think this is the one. Do you see SharePoint also heavily used in your customer base for getting the request? No, only ServiceNow. Mostly ServiceNow and sometimes Jira. Jira? But mostly it's ServiceNow basically. Almost SharePoint lost its steam. They are not popular anymore. That I am not sure. But same time Jira is again widely used everywhere. Jira. But I am not sure if like how the market coverage between these tools. Jira is very good. Jira is a nice software. All companies that use agile methodology, they use Jira. Because of Agile, everyone is using Jira. Correct. Here, if you see, this is the connected dietary page here. Now you will see all those connectors which is supported by SailPoint. Now, same time, if you want to go, for example, let's say CyberArk. This is the one. Enterprise security category. Here you will see what you can do with the SailPoint system. Basically, from the SailPoint, you can do provisioning, access, modeling, certification, compliance, password management, exchange schema. These are the things that you can do it, and other than that you want to do, you can also do it. But for that, you have to reach out to the SailPoint commercial, basically the services for which you have to pay. Basically, it's kind of giving you product. But if you want to transfer to next level, you have to pay some cost and they will provide you solution. Understood? I think that this is an important part. I think this is that a little bit a higher level. I think mostly they will hire some programmers or something to do this kind of a job. Then configuration. What are we called generally when we go as a SailPoint configuration people, SailPoint consultant or something. That's it. I mean development also implementation like implementer person or generally we call it like developer and the consultant. On the implementation team, yes, basically what? See, you are developing the solution for the customer. You are developer, but same time the requirement basically now is for this product. The product based solution is not just only to do development. It is more about how you're providing solution to the customer. That in that case they call it consultant. That you are the consultant. That means you have a good experience basically. Then you can suggest them or write in a solution. Understood. That's a thing. I do want to ask some dumb question to you or to Apaxia. I think looks like she was able to do it. How do I download these? These software set as was mentioned in the document that you sent. It has a Java Tomcat. I've uploaded everything on that. I know I have the document to do this. The first thing is, according to you, there is a Java JDK 1.8.0. Can I use this? Somewhere I can find that Java first item to download. If you see here, for example, the software. These are the list of all the software. Now coming to the sequence. For example, if you go here, training docs, you have one document now at this moment. This is what installation documents this is with the 7.3. Only version difference. You can download it. You can basically follow this same step. Only your version will be changed. You can check that step. All are seen. Now one more thing, I put it here, product documentation. Here you will see all the document. For example, the business process, for example, certification. Anything in detail, what's open, provide you document. That you can check it in here also. You can see the installation guide. We just add installation guide. You will see this is for the 8.2. Here you will see the complete details. I was thinking they're mentioning latest one is 8.2 or even higher version. Only last month. But the one that we are installing is 7.1. No, the document is created on the 7.3, but we are installing the 8.2, which is again a little latest one. Basically, yes, I saw this, like for example, my role is basically consultant. I have to like give solution of the problems and the suggestion like the design part. Now, if you talk about the US, on my experience, like ADL experience, I've seen guys who are working on the support projects where they're getting like 1 or 2 tickets that they need to complete within 1 week. That in that case, basically, if average knowledge is the person has average knowledge, the person can easily, survive in that job. This training, you mean? No. The person has a basic knowledge. I mean, not what I mean to say as a 6-year experience or 80 experience. You should not be a pro guy in SailPoint to do a job in USA. You can easily get a support job with less knowledge. You can go. If you go to training, you will be in the medium level knowledge. Definitely hands-on experiences, always different experience. The live project experiences are always a different experience. You're saying level 1, level 2, you should be comfortable first and then, level 3 also, because they don't give you too much work. The first thing is basically forget about the number. You know that level of knowledge. They will give you one task. Let's say they will give you L3 task. Level 3. Now for the level 3, they will give you enough time. You have many options that you can go with the community. You can search your documents, those kinds of things. But if you talk about like for me, like where we get the L3 item, we have to resolve in same day. And not one item, like a lot of items, we have to work on in the same day. This is how big consultancy firms work in India. But in the case of US, basically my point is easily surviving means that they will get enough time to, get a resource or to get a help. They know, but basically they in the US, like after COVID, people are doing 2 and 34 jobs. They go for the support job because in that case they will have less work but a good salary. I was confused like, is this a kind of support job? No. Basically, consultancy services, always or definitely not a developer or a consultant only, but it can be a combination of both developer and consultant, or mainly consultant, like providing solution like stakeholders, but definitely never be a support job. The core concept will remain same, and the main lead. Basically, the system, we are doing, provisioning, what is the requirement. The terminology will change. For example, here we call it aggregation and SailPoint, but in Oracle we call it reconciliation, basically. But the meaning of both tools is same, that we are patching data and we are putting into centralized system. Now, coming to why they don't process your C requests is that everyone is. Basically, they want to hire a guy who can start working on the project from the day one. It's not like they don't know the concept. They don't understand that this guy comes from, this tool can also work, but these are always, kind of thought that they have. Why not hire a guy who can just start working from the day one, instead of guy who will take some time to, get groomed or like that? That thing. And generally, do I have enough, experience in this IAM and other tool, internal tool, because of this drawback? It is great. No, I tell you. When I switched from Oracle to SailPoint, that time I didn't have any option to switch like a change my project in my same organization. What I have to try to switch. Basically, that was the only option. But when I switched, most of the organization was calling me for Oracle ID management. That time I was like, this is a tool for which I have to move out from this tool and I want to go into SailPoint and all the offer letter that I have. That is for the Oracle ID management. That time I start learning SailPoint by my own. I spent a lot of time on this training material, many things. And with the basic knowledge, I apply it again with Oracle, good knowledge and the basic knowledge of SailPoint. And in the interview start mentioning I'm looking for the SailPoint job. Like generally they ask question, I buy you're looking for a change. I have clearly mentioned it. I'm looking for the SailPoint of function. That's it. I'm not looking for the pay high, but definitely I will expect like 30-42%, which is a natural. But I think certainly saying that I'm looking for a SailPoint. Then finally I got one opportunity in the SailPoint and from there my actual journey started. In the SailPoint, like from the project learning perspective. There are different kind of people. That sometimes one person can get a 3 tools in 3 years. And sometimes they are working like from last 5-6 years on a same tool. I have even experiences always different. But overall, if you have a good knowledge of one tool, then you can easily work on same domain. Now I cannot use it easily because that is a different domain. But if you talk about other, I can easily understand, learn and start working in the project. Yes, the problem is with the sector people, they'll call in last experience. That's why the F1 is always a good way to get into an organization. Let's come back to here. I was explaining you this business process here. Let's talk about this, the one that we just imported here, which was managed. Where is that? This one, process variables. We saw this notification, then we saw policy checking, like we developed a track equity policy. If you want to configure here at the time of request entitlement, if you want to apply that policy, you can do the setting from here basically. If you want to check only specific policy, let's say you have 10 policy, you want to check only specific, then you can select from here from this laptop. Basically the UI wizard that you can do. Now, trace execution is what basically trace execution is. Logs, basically we call it logs. When workflow execute in the backend, whenever you make any requests. The logs will only come if your trace is enabled here, or you can workflow. This is the one we create, search for trace variable. By default, it is false. We can make this true. And now Satan will start printing all the logs in the console. This is how we do troubleshooting here. Basically, these are the variable. You can configure it. You can more read about here in the description for every variable. They have put a description here. Definitely, you have limited control here, and this is good. But you have a complete control here. And generally we do. We make changes from there and from this debug because we are totally happy with this console. Open debug and start open the file and make change here directly. This is how we do the change. Now, if you talk about this business process, you see start and there is one more at the end is end. And step, by default, every workflow will have this 2-step. Now, this remaining is basically as per the requirement. Now, field point covered different scenarios here. For example, if you see this start, this is a start step. On the top, like we write the Java, we declare the variables. Same way these variables are declared here. If you see this, variables different variables. Now this is actual code. Start. If you see what we are doing here, we're simply moving from start to initialize, transition to initialize. This is your initialize step. Same thing you will see, start to initialize arrow. Now from initialize, you see we are going to 4 different steps based on the condition. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now same thing you will see here. This is the initial step, start here. Here it ends. This is your initial step, this whole. Now, if you see here transition to 4 different steps, how one workflow can transition to 4 different steps? No, one step can be only moved to one step. Follow one sequence, then how it will work. Basically, whenever you have multiple transition, you will see condition. For example, this is one variable. This is a script basically written in the Java. If this value written true, it will call this one. If this value written true, this will call this one. Generally, this we never use. This is created where, when you don't have provisioning configured for the application, you see exit on manual work item. If you see here exit on manual work item, exit on provisioning form, exit on policy violation, that means you don't have enough information to complete the request most of the time, and that if you see all this 3 arrow going to exit. Basically, our request go through from this step, initialize to create a ticket. In the initialize SailPoint, create this identity request that we see here. Identity request ID as of now, I deleted this data. It's not coming up here. The ID number you see, that is come with this step. Initialize. Now first it will create ID. Now it will go to create ticket. This is the create ticket. Create ticket is used if you have other system configured with SailPoint, which will be used for create ticket. Generally, we don't have any system. Then from the ticket, we simply go to this step. This is our main decision maker. Here, basically, if we want to split the request based on the approval, we can split it. Otherwise, generally it goes to this step. Approval and provision. If I show you a proven provision, you will see this is our one. Approval and provision. Approval and provision is one step which is basically calling another workflow which is called sub-process. Workflow step, you will see here workflow name. This is a workflow that we are calling approval provision sub-process. What it do first, it will create the approval. Second, once that approval is completed, it will proge and access. Now, if I open this workflow, approval and provision sub-process, in this you will see same approach, everything. Approval and provision sub-process. You have variables here. Same approval scheme, those option here. Then you have start step here. From the start, it's going to compile project. This is a compile project. In the compile project, it will compile this. Basically, if you call it action, call compile provisioning project. These are the internal Java written in the SailPoint that we cannot see. I mean, we can see, but it'll take a lot of time too. First, we need to find out the Java, then we need to decompile that. But basically, it is a Java written in the backend. Basically, when this step execute, it call this Java, that will basically compile your request. Basically, after that, it will build approval set. That means here we are creating approval set. Now, in this approval step, basically transition to approve, it will create actual approval. Once that approval is done, it will go for the provision. This is how it works. Whatever you see here in different step, also it called sub-process also. It's not like approval provision is totally handling everything in this step. This step might call another workflow to handle the request. Why we are doing that? Because SailPoint basically divided a code. We can use same file in multiple places. For example, approval provision. Basically create approval and provision. The request, it doesn't matter. It is entitlement request. It is a counter request. Now here the same workflow. Basically you might need approval in all the site. The same sub-process can be used here. That's the reason SailPoint divided the process into different files. Approval file can be used whenever we required approval in any kind of request. This is your workflow here, how we make these changes here. Now one more thing I want to tell you, like if you see here variables, for example, identity name. For example, I requested something for, let's say, Aaron Nicholas here. Identity name will be always Aaron Nicholas. That will be in each lives here when this workflow will be called. How we can pass this variable, if you see this referred 9 times in the same file, how you will see here, go down, go to start, step, start to transition. This is approval in 2 years of process. Let me open the L, sync provisioning. The approach will remain same. You will see 20 times. This is the name of that Aaron Nicholas. Now, if you see this variable here, start to initialize basically identity, name or effort. This variable again. Basically what it means. For example, when we write the job or whenever we use any process, we might need many things at the initial, but to particularly complete one task, we need some limited attributes. For example, this one. Here in this initialize that we need the name of the user. That's the reason we are passing this as a RG. RG stand for argument. Same way, you will see it's not mentioned here in the create ticket because in the create ticket, we don't need that identity name. This is how a SailPoint refer the variables. in different place. Basically, when SailPoint is calling some process, let's say the previous one, approval and provision, if you create approval workflow for complete application and after a few days application team come up with a new requirement where one particular subgroup or one particular organization, entity, people should have different set of approvals. Then what it will do, create a new workflow with that organization entity set, or you have to update the existing approval workflow as well. Whenever you use Manage the Access, after selecting the user, you can select any application. And workflow you cannot configure based on the application workflow. You can configure based on the number of items that you have for the operation. Basically, if you're adding always, if you go to the Lifecycle Manager, if you're using this Managed User Access quickly, it will always call this workflow whatever you're specified in. Application specific workflow, we cannot configure it. You have to go to next level to put the Java in this workflow at the starting of. You will put the Java here. Now I'll show you, for example, you see the Java. For example, you have approval like you will see the approval scheme here. Rule scheme here. What you have to do, for example, let's say we have two application A and B. For A, you want to put a manager approval. For B, you want to put on approval. Simple example. What you have to do, you see the script code you have to copy same day, you have to put here. Now it is this tag is ending here. You have to remove this and take, sorry, we have to end this decade. This script will become part of this tag. Sorry. Now this script become part of this. That means this script will always return value. For example, simply put the logic here. If I need equals to, let's say, a return, I'm just writing sudo data manager. If I mean equals to B, based on the application name, now we're returning the value of the subrule scheme. If app name is it will use manager. If it will use owner, when the sale plan will generate his approval, it will generate based on this logic. For same application, also we can give like if the organization unit is equal to an unit, then we have to. We can, it is flexible. You can do that. That's why compile provisioning project. This is a variable which is used by this process. Let's say you want to change something based on some condition for the customer requirement. You can put this script like this, and the value which will be finally generated by this code will be used by this process. Basically, it's kind of a Java-like. We have Java method we have to pass arguments. This provisioning project is the one which will be visible like instead of the same provisioning, this compiled provisioning project name. LCM provisioning is use provisioning plan like whatever we request here. Internally, the sale plan created an object. That internal object is called provisioning plan. And then sale plan compiled that provisioning plan, it become provisioning project. If you go back to the UI like SailPoint, there are several. I can give you example of this provisioning project and provisioning plan. Like if you write a Java, that file become Java. .java is your provisioning plan and the compile.class is your provisioning project. Can you ask you a question again? Sorry, I interpret you. Can you go back to the SailPoint where there are methods like L, CM, provisioning and other things were there? If you go to the same provisioning inside that there were several business processes. Business process. Just a second. Not in the debug. In the business process. Here that process will be called like. That will be visible whatever new code we will write. No code you will not see here. You will see very limited information. No, like you have manipulated that code. In which method you have manipulated like here. Basically, you have to see that logic here, but it is kind of confusing. It will not give you complete info here. Like the simpler ways, always go with the debug and check. For example, here you will see that step. Let's say start to initialize from the initialize. We have this one step where you can say workflow LCMM provisioning object related to workflow LCMM provisioning. Sorry, what you are asking. In the same provisioning, only we have to edit the code. I thought there is a different one which we have to call. No. Got. In the same provision, only if you have to edit and choose the option as LCM provisioning. Yes. In the business process, the one you have to use it that you have to select here because here you can select only one. There is no way you can configure multiple or conditional base. Same provisioning, only we have to edit the code. Basically, the meaning is when you click on this link, it will call this work. For that, check. Whatever condition you want to add, you have to add inside this file, but you cannot select multiple. I mean, we should not say for the onward application. We should say any kind of provisioning request in SailPoint. Basically, it should have all the provisioning. That's when you say provisioning, you're not creating users on the applications. No. When I say provisioning everything, creating user on the application, adding the entitlement on the application, putting user in that group, everything. But then you need to hardcore the applications inside the code. No, that is not required. For example, when you select here, for example, if you go to manager, for example, here all. Now don't we have any entitlement? Check that. Just a second. Schema user group name. I was making some change in this database. I lost some information. If you see, I go by a manager access. Let me close all the other tabs. We have entitlement catalog here, in which we have some entitlement which are requestable, which belong to financial application. Let's say I select Aaron Nicholas here and then I search it. If I'm selecting here, you see I have an application name will be there. For example, if I select audit management, you'll put automatically load this application on certain time and see the point internally processing this provisioning request. There's no dependency on the application name. Whatever you select, the entitlement is part of application. This is one object basically, any request ID given. For example, this audit management is one single object that you will see here. Audit management. This is one single object. Now, when you submit this for the single object, this single object contains every information: who's the owner, who is the app, what is the application name. Now, if you see access request ID is one created. Now go to access request. I just have covered in the last few sessions. This is a request. This is a request number 1A, add entitlement. Here, if you see, currently it's got stuck here, approval and provision, because here it is waiting for the approval. Entitlement. Basically, you can see the access of the group is not an individual. It's part of application. SailPoint when simple dispose of process. This request simple. Know that this audit management belong to financial application. I have to do provisioning in the financial application. One more thing I want to show you that I configured recently. Here, basically now, like when you work in the dev environment, you will build a, let's say, 50 application, 50 irrigation tasks, some rules, some workflow. A lot of things you find you will modify. If you see here, it was coming with the IDs. You will see more ideas here, like example this ID. This is the issue, and please do like, share and subscribe to our channel. For more information, contact us sales@therightuptalk.com.